Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to, well, cut through the absolute avalanche of noise we face in modern digital health.
Oh, and there is so much noise right now.
There really is. Because here's the reality you are likely navigating right now. We're living in this era of just unprecedented access to information,
Right.
yet we are somehow, more overwhelmed than ever when it comes to actually treating our own bodies.
It's a paradox, honestly.
It totally is.
Yeah.
So today, we're exploring the nuanced and, frankly, highly practical realities of seeking medical advice in an age where every single social media feed is just packed with health influencers.
It is a phenomenal mission. I mean, primarily because the paradox of choice has completely paralyzed so many of us.
Yeah, exactly.
We literally have the greatest medical minds in the world sitting right in our pockets.
Right.
But, as we're going to uncover, access to brilliant, world-class information is just fundamentally different from receiving actionable, safe medical treatment.
And to guide us through that distinction today, we are drawing from a single, incredibly grounded presentation.
It's a really fascinating one.
Yeah, it's a talk titled, Choosing a Medical Practitioner for Your Treatment. And the source is a man named Osman, who operates online under the moniker The Blind Muslim Yogi.
Right. And for some context here, he is an energy healer, a yoga and meditation teacher, and an entrepreneur.
Exactly. He spent decades, literally decades, exploring natural and ancient methodologies for improving human life.
But before we get into the actual mechanics of his philosophy, we have to establish a non-negotiable caveat, one that Osman himself is, well, he's extremely rigid about right at the start of his presentation.
Yes, this is the absolute foundation of the whole discussion. Osman explicitly states that his natural methodologies, his energy work, his lifestyle practices, they are absolutely not a replacement for professional medical treatment.
No, not at all.
He tells his audience, without any ambiguity, that if you have a medical condition, you must seek the advice and consultation of a qualified, licensed medical professional in your own locality.
Which is such a remarkably responsible framework for discussing complementary wellness.
It really is.
He is drawing a definitive boundary between optimizing your daily lifestyle and actually treating acute or chronic biological illnesses.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand why that boundary is so incredibly important, we have to look at the trap most of us fall into.
Oh, the internet trap.
Right. Imagine for a second that your basement is flooding. The main line has burst, water is rapidly rising, it's a complete structural disaster.
A total nightmare.
Exactly. But instead of calling the local plumber who actually knows the weird, outdated municipal pipes in your specific neighborhood, you just sit down on the stairs, open your laptop, and start watching a TED Talk by a globally renowned, award-winning architect.
I love this analogy because the impulse makes sense on the surface, right?
You think, well, the architect is a visionary.
Exactly. They design skyscrapers that withstand earthquakes. Surely they understand the concepts of fluid dynamics and foundational integrity way better than the guy down the street with a wrench.
But that is the fatal flaw. Because while the architect is giving you this beautiful theoretical breakdown of hydrostatic pressure,
Your drywall is literally melting into the floor.
yes, you don't need theoretical brilliance in that moment. You need someone with the localized knowledge and the legal authority to walk out and turn off the city water valve right then and there.
Right.
And that brings us to our first major shift in perspective. Why the sheer brilliance of a global medical expert doesn't seamlessly translate into actionable treatment for you.
What's fascinating here is how Osman observes our modern digital habits. When something feels off with our health, like a persistent cough or chronic fatigue or joint pain, we immediately bypass our local clinic.
Totally. We just flock to YouTube.
Right. We seek out the absolute apex of academia.
We want the heavy hitters. We are watching hour-long lectures from tenured professors, highly specialized doctors, PhDs, Nobel Prize winners.
Osman specifically mentions the gravity of institutions like Harvard Medical University and Oxford University.
Yeah, he holds immense respect for these places and the minds they produce. But he identifies a massive structural limitation in treating their content as a personal diagnostic tool.
It really comes down to the environment of the advice. Osman points out that when a Nobel laureate is speaking to a camera, they're operating in an idealistic environment.
Meaning they're talking about perfect conditions.
Exactly. They are masters of human biology,
Huh.
and they understand the intricate cellular mechanisms of disease. But they're discussing the human body as a theoretical construct.
Right.
They're talking about a statistical average not the deeply specific, wonderfully flawed biological reality of the actual person watching the video.
Okay, I want to challenge that geographic barrier for a second. Let's look at this from the listener's perspective. Biology is biology, right?
Sure, in theory.
So, what does this all mean? If a globally recognized researcher at Oxford publishes a video detailing a breakthrough protocol that, say, definitively lowers systemic inflammation, why does geography matter? If the science is universal, why can't I just take that protocol, walk into my corner pharmacy, and say, hey, give me this. The smartest guy on earth said it works.
Because you are bumping up against the rigid compliance structures of modern healthcare. A pharmacy isn't just a dispensary. It is the final checkpoint in a strict chain of legal liability.
Ah, liability.
Exactly. Osman breaks down this practical roadblock perfectly. Medical licensing is not a universal passport. The healthcare system is a heavily regulated logistical chain designed entirely around local accountability.
So it's not actually about the quality of the information, it's about the jurisdiction of the liability.
Precisely. A medical board in your specific country, your state, or even just your city has to issue a certificate to practice.
Right.
There are complex local requirements a practitioner must meet before they are legally allowed to prescribe anything. That Oxford professor holds zero regulatory weight when a local pharmacist has to put their own license on the line to dispense a controlled substance.
Or to approve a rigorous treatment protocol.
Right. The pharmacist has to verify a valid local medical license. If they don't, the medication simply does not get released.
Wow, that completely shifts the paradigm. We get so mesmerized by the allure of the global genius, the person with 1 million followers and a best-selling book, that we entirely forget about the physical mechanics of getting the medicine into our hands.
We really do.
The realization that an online visionary literally cannot legally write your prescription logically forces a pivot. It forces us to abandon that pristine, idealistic digital space and look at the highly personalized, localized environment.
And that is exactly where the local practitioner steps into the light. They might not be giving keynote speeches in Geneva, but they possess an arsenal of highly specific tools that the internet influencer simply cannot access.
Because they actually have your data. This is something Osman is incredibly enthusiastic about. Think about what your local doctor actually holds.
They have your whole file.
Exactly. They possess your longitudinal personal history. They understand your specific physiology, not because they read a study about people like you, but because they have conducted multiple laboratory tests on you.
Right. They know your baseline blood pressure. They know your specific weaknesses.
They know your past reactions to certain medications.
They are dealing with empirical evidence of your unique biology. But Osman introduces a second half to this equation that is rarely talked about in the age of globalized medicine.
Which is?
Well, having your physical lab history is the baseline, but an isolated blood test doesn't tell a doctor what is happening outside your window.
Rep.
The second half of the equation is the cultural and environmental context.
Oh, this is where the concept of local medicine gets really profound. It's not just biological, it's geographical.
Exactly. Your local doctor understands the ambient stress of your locality. Let's look at a hypothetical example to make this concrete.
Okay, Leon Army.
Imagine a patient living in London versus a patient living in Dubai. Both might present with symptoms of chronic lethargy and maybe some minor bone density issues.
Right. And a global doctor online might prescribe the exact same standard protocol.
But the local reality is wildly different.
Completely different.
The local doctor in London knows that their patient lives in a damp, often cold environment with a severe lack of natural sunlight for months out of the year.
So vitamin D deficiency is a massive cultural baseline there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the local doctor in Dubai knows their patient lives in extreme heat, relies heavily on intense air conditioning, and perhaps consumes a diet heavily influenced by totally different regional staples.
Oh, wow.
The environmental stressors, the daily habits, the cultural norms, the local doctor factors all of this into the treatment because they live in that exact same reality.
It's like the difference between reading a beautifully illustrated, peer-reviewed textbook on agriculture and actually hiring a farmer who has spent 20 years working the exact chemical makeup of the soil in your own backyard.
I love that.
I mean, the textbook might tell you the perfect ratio of water to sunlight for a specific crop, but your local farmer knows that your specific yard gets way too much shade in the afternoon.
Right, and the drainage is terrible on the left side.
Exactly. And that the soil needs a highly specific local fertilizer to actually yield anything.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. The local doctor is the farmer of your health. They know the soil. But here is the catch.
There's always a catch.
To get the compounding benefit of that local knowledge, you have to actually let them tend the soil over time. Which brings us to Osman's severe warning against a habit he calls doctor hopping.
Oh, doctor hopping. Yeah, this is when you jump from one clinic to another on different tries. Maybe you have a lingering problem and the first doctor doesn't instantly solve it, so you just go to a new one.
Or you don't like the answer you received, so you seek out a third opinion just to find someone who will validate your own internet research.
Yeah, Osman is absolute on this. He says it is highly detrimental.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the mechanism of why doctor hopping fails. When you constantly change practitioners, you are intentionally creating a data vacuum.
You're fragmenting your medical history across multiple disconnected databases.
It's like trying to understand a complex murder mystery novel, but every single chapter is kept in a different library across town, and none of the librarians are allowed to talk to each other.
And you expect the final librarian to instantly know who the killer is based only on the last page.
Right. When you hop from clinic to clinic, Dr. C doesn't see the slightly elevated liver enzyme that Dr. A noted 18 months ago. They just see today's snapshot.
They are completely missing the trajectory.
And in complex medicine, the trajectory of a symptom is very often the actual diagnosis.
This is where Osman brings in his own deeply personal experience. He mentions that he has been immersed in the yoga and meditation field for several decades.
Decades, yeah.
And over those decades, his work has taken him to various cities around the world. Given his lifestyle, he notes that it was actually relatively rare that he needed to consult a doctor for a medical issue.
But when that rare occasion arose, his methodology for seeking help was incredibly deliberate.
Right. He says that whenever he settled in a city, he usually went to only one medical professional in his locality. He found someone and he stuck with them.
It's almost like building equity in a house.
Exactly. He realized that if he kept resetting his medical relationships every time he had a minor issue, he was losing all of that compounded diagnostic equity.
By keeping his history centralized, that one professional had the complete, unfragmented picture and could treat him exponentially better.
It fundamentally alters the dynamic from a transactional encounter to a longitudinal relationship. And that brings us to the psychological core of Osman's philosophy.
Sticking with one doctor isn't just an administrative trick to keep your lab records organized. It literally changes the human commitment between the patient and the healer.
Which introduces an argument that feels almost taboo in modern hyperscientific medicine. Osman argues that you should not go to a doctor just because they are highly qualified in their field.
Which on the surface sounds totally counterintuitive.
Yeah.
We are conditioned by society to seek out the most impressive credentials, the highest honors, the best grades.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Osman acknowledges the qualifications are necessary, obviously, but he adds a crucial human filter.
Right.
He says you must go to someone you genuinely respect. You need to consult someone whose treatment approach you actually feel works for your body. And crucially, someone you are happy to sit across from and consult with.
He is injecting emotion, rapport, and likability into what we normally treat as a cold, sterile, scientific transaction.
So I have to play devil's advocate here. I'm struggling with this part. Chemistry is chemistry, isn't it?
Okay, go on.
If I have a bacterial infection and the doctor prescribes a highly effective antibiotic, that antibiotic is going to destroy the bacteria whether my doctor is my best friend or a completely abrasive jerk. So why should likability or respect matter at all when we are dealing with hard science and cellular biology?
Well, in a pure vacuum, you are absolutely right. A beta blocker blocks beta receptors regardless of the doctor's bedside manner. The chemistry doesn't care about your feelings.
Right.
But Osman isn't analyzing the chemistry. He's analyzing human behavior. It all comes down to the adherence factor, because a prescription is completely useless if the patient refuses to swallow the pill.
Oh, the therapeutic alliance. It's the psychological bridge that makes the physical treatment possible.
Precisely. Osman asks a very pragmatic question. If you do not like or respect the person prescribing your treatment protocol, what is the realistic likelihood that you're going to strictly follow it?
Honestly, if I'm being self-aware, it's incredibly low.
Yeah, same.
If a doctor is dismissive of my concerns, or if I just fundamentally resent their attitude, the minute that prescribed protocol introduces friction, maybe the medication gives me a slight stomachache or the physical therapy is really painful, I am going to abandon it.
You'll justify quitting.
I totally will. I'll rationalize it by thinking, well, they didn't really listen to me anyway. They don't know my body. This is the wrong treatment.
And just like that, the world's most scientifically accurate medical advice is thrown in the trash.
Wow.
Respect is the operational glue that keeps a patient compliant when a treatment protocol becomes difficult, uncomfortable, or tedious.
That makes so much sense.
If you respect a practitioner's authority and their deep understanding of your personal context, you will endure the friction because you trust the destination.
It's the realization that the relationship itself is an active ingredient in your recovery. And Osman grounds this by reminding us why we should cultivate that respect in the first place.
Because it is very easy to become cynical about the modern healthcare system. It can feel so bureaucratic and impersonal.
But he forces us to look at the individual sitting across the desk. He reminds us of the massive, almost incomprehensible knowledge base that local medical professionals possess.
It really is staggering when you think about it.
We are talking about individuals who have spent a decade or more doing nothing but intensely studying the complexities of human anatomy, pharmacology, and pathology.
They have endured grueling residencies, infinite exams.
Yes. And they carry the immense daily liability of prescribing treatments that directly alter human lives.
They hold a level of applied competency that the general public simply does not possess. Osman suggests that, at the very least, acknowledging that monumental dedication of time and intellect is the mandatory foundation for building a successful patient-doctor dynamic.
It requires bringing a sense of humility into the exam room. You are bringing the intimate knowledge of your own daily life and your symptoms, and they are bringing a decade of rigorous scientific training.
Right.
When those two things meet in an environment of mutual respect, actual healing can begin.
It beautifully synthesizes this entire journey. It takes us from the overwhelming noise of the internet right down to the quiet, vital conversation happening in your local clinic.
So let's distill all of this for everyone listening, because the digital world isn't going anywhere.
No, it's definitely not.
We are going to continue seeing brilliant, charismatic experts talking about health breakthroughs online, and honestly, we should keep listening to them.
Absolutely. The internet is an unparalleled tool for discovery.
As Osman points out, leveraging YouTube and global platforms to hear from brilliant PhDs is a fantastic way to broaden your thinking. It educates you on the mechanisms of your body and introduces you to cutting-edge science.
But the ultimate takeaway here is the necessary separation of inspiration from execution.
Exactly. The inspiration can come from a studio in Cambridge, but the execution of medical treatment requires a locally licensed practitioner.
We fundamentally need the professional on the ground.
We really do. We need the doctor who can navigate the local pharmacy's regulatory checkpoints. We need the practitioner who holds the unfragmented, compounding equity of our laboratory history.
And the person who understands the invisible cultural and environmental stressors of the city we live in.
And above all else, we need someone who commands our genuine personal respect, so that when the treatment gets tough, we actually have the discipline to follow their advice.
Before we close out, it is worth mentioning that Osman explores these intersections of ancient practices and modern realities quite extensively.
He does indeed. For anyone listening who wants to dive deeper into his contemporary discussions, especially his perspectives on matters currently trending across major media platforms in diverse environments like London and Dubai, you can explore his work directly.
Where can they find that?
His website is yogawellness786.com. He provides contact information and various resources there that many might find beneficial for their own personal wellness journeys.
It is a really fascinating look at how to maintain grounded ancient wisdom while navigating a highly complex modern society.
And for you, the person listening to this right now, the relevance of this deep dive is incredibly immediate.
It applies to literally everyone.
The next time you find yourself scrolling late at night, feeling an overwhelming wave of anxiety because a brilliant medical influencer is insisting you need a complex 20-step protocol to achieve optimal health.
You can take a breath.
Yes, you can step back. You can absorb the interesting science, but you can also deeply appreciate the grounded, practical, and highly personalized value of your local doctor. You don't have to crowdsource your health from a screen.
This raises an important question, though, and it is something that I think warrants reflection long after this audio finishes playing.
Leave us with it.
Well, we began by contrasting the brilliant architect with the local plumber. The allure of perfect theory versus the necessity of local reality.
Right.
But Osman ultimately revealed that our local reality is entirely dependent on the quality of our human connection.
Yeah.
If our willingness to actually adhere to a life-saving medical protocol is so inextricably linked to how much we respect and like the person handing it to us,
Which it is.
how much of modern healing actually relies on the cold, hard chemistry of the medicine. and how much is secretly dependent on the deeply human relationship we build with the person prescribing it.
Are we ultimately cured by the pill, or are we cured by the trust we place in the local expert standing right in front of us? Something to think about.